Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the desk. Mass one and initialized. No, Nightmare. No. We said he's done too much casting. He has to go take a break, and actually, rather, he needs to do his studies and do real world things, right? Not initialize.
Absolutely. No, like he's there's only so much time I can spend with my brother before I need to show him his place. And that clearly is not on stream, and that's how it works, you know.
Is that why you sent him back to
Yeah,
London and
exactly
you
that.
stayed home and not?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly that. Either way, point being that obviously we miss him, we love him, but he's got other things to do in life, unfortunately, aside from cast the LJL, which is a shock and a horror to us all. But alas, here we are casting next game on, which I believe is Sengoku Gaming versus SoftBank Hawks Gaming, which makes for that glorious moniker of SG versus SHG. And things get really confusing for play-by-plays very quickly.
Oh yeah, definitely those analogy or the synonyms for both these teams and get very confusing incredibly quickly. This is definitely going to be an important match for Sengoku because for obvious reasons they're 0-3 and this was the team a lot of people were hyping up both in Japan and just analysts in general. They were just like, this is the team that's going to be probably second place or top three at minimum. And they're 0-3. Whereas the Hawks were coming in, we had a okay first week, nothing amazing. We were a bit disappointed with their performance in those games, but hey, if they can pick up another win over Sengoku, this is just more par for the course, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I kind of agree, and I'll give some credit that even in the loss, like Dasher was doing some fairly stylish things on the likes of Yone. Um,
Yeah.
and you know, like Apperman was doing fine in lane. It was just not being quite around in time for team fights. It was a bit more problematic, but the laning seemed fine, and the likes of Dasher definitely had, as I said, some good mechanical problems. Moments is a better way of putting it, not mechanical problems. That's slightly antithetical. But there's definitely good pieces here. I just need to see them combine it, particularly in the mid and late game, into something that looks a little bit more cohesive and a little bit snappier, because being late to objectives, being late to team fights, sets you at a serious disadvantage that you don't want to have to play your way out of.
No, you really won't. And this, how much do you think, because of what we saw from the Chris Gaming Act, how much of the tempo of this game is going to be controlled around the jungle, and how much of it is going to be based around tussle and crash?
I mean, at the minute, junglers are deciding quite a lot still. In a lot, at
Yep,
least in terms, where are they putting their attention?
that's fair.
If you were watching something like the lock-in tournament last night, that last game after 2 games back and forth of either piece between Liquid and C9, you saw that basically Santorin sets up a camp in the top side and demolishes Fudge, and suddenly doesn't get to play the game, and the game is all over very, very quickly. And that feels very true no matter what jungler on right now. If it's a farming jungler and you manage to get a 50 CS lead over your opponent and then turn up to team fights and wreck them, that's still a terror. And I need to see that out of the likes of Tussle and Dasher, and seeing how they can get around the map and impact their side lanes, where a lot of the playmaking seems to be happening right now. Interestingly, quite a lot's around topside.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think topside is becoming increasingly more important, and I think that lock-in tournament game number 5 is actually a really good kind of piece of League of Legends where you can kind of look at it and go, well, this just shows how important jungle is, how important that jungle pressure is, and if your jungler isn't shadowing or mirroring what the enemy jungler is going to do and kind of pulling that tempo, you can fall incredibly far behind, and it feels almost helpless if you're not a part of that game because, hey, the bot lane in that game felt like they just lost a game they didn't even play a part in, which definitely interesting as we come into the Hawks facing off against Sengoku and initialize who have you got favored in this match?
At least in my predictions, I had the Hawks. I figured their consistency, and even in their losses, I felt like these guys have got something at least to work with. They're 1-1 right now. Of course, we'll have to see how it actually plays out in game. And Sengoku Gaming are nothing if not aggressive and mercurial. And hell, Gango and Enti may have lost the game, but they certainly won the lane. And maybe you can do that again here.
We will have to wait and see and actually initialize why are we waiting when we could actually just see, as let's go over to this pick and ban phase.
Absolutely. I've got you there, mate. And into picks and bans we go. And we've got ourselves, of course, the Hawks on the blue side. Sengoku Gaming over on the red. And we'll see, of course, Apperman, Tussle, Dasher, Zenit, and Corporal rounding out that Hawks roster. I'll leave Sengoku to you, my friend.
Paz in the top lane, Crash in the jungle, Ramune in the mid lane, Gango in the bot lane, and NT as their support. And we've got an Olaf ban over on the side of Sengoku.
Well, no surprise there. Couple bans coming out straight away. As you mentioned, Talia, Galio are the Hawks' choices. Get rid of some of those globals. They weren't that willing to play them the other day. They're certainly not willing to play them today. And that might be a problem in and of itself, of course, because if you were listening to the likes of Mithy, he was saying, well, whoever has the most globals wins. At the minute, it feels like the kind of space that a lot of these games are in. Of course, the last band is the Thresh, which kind of decouples Gango from an easier Felios lane, so I understand the ban there, but Sengoku as well, looking towards a Lilia ban, which of course Tussle has really, really favoured in pick and ban.
Yeah, absolutely. And this Galio being banned on the side of the Hawks, this is the 3rd out of 4 games. Ramones has had this Galio, or NT, as obviously Galio is a flex pick. It's a 75% ban rate against them, and they've normally always banned this Pantheon and Aphelios. They haven't this time around, and Set as well. They've actually decided to go in a completely different direction, banning the Kaiser and the Lilia, as we see the Samira being locked in. Now, there's a few different champions. Obviously, that Alistar is great. Rel is a beautiful combo. I remember Captain Flowers going absolutely crazy over it, and it is an incredibly strong combo with the knock-up and everything. We see an open from here from Paz with the Gnar just blind picking that and a Vayne being locked in.
Yeah, we definitely do, and that is bold from both of these guys. First pick, Samira, is definitely giving Sengoku the chance to just pick up loads of things that can just point and click CC here and stop her from spinning to winning. On the other side, though, you know, it's a first pick Gnar again. Paz didn't have the best time on that, and an immediate lock-in of Vayne for Gango. That is so crazy, but it leaves the Hawks to go Nidalee Renekton as well to try and sit on Paz. They saw how well it worked in the last game. Renekton and Nidalee can certainly do the same thing as a Renekton, as a Rek'Sai and a Camille.
Crash has Ghost, so that's an Udyr, right? Like that's just
That's
happening.
Fair shout. I mean, it also, of course, old school Olaf would certainly have thought about that, but it's also, you remember, Hecarim. Never run Flash on Hecarim when you can run a Ghost. Hecarim kind of around and about the meta, a little bit under the radar, but certainly has the tools and has been seen around and about a little bit. No need to build a jungle item anymore. You can just rush Trinity Force and feel really happy about yourself and still get the empowered smite. So definitely a world where this Hecarim can really, really hurt.
Absolutely. If you can't play Lilia in a lot of scenarios, it's almost always correct to just play Hecarim, as they offer somewhat similarities, but there's obviously a bit of a difference. Hecarim's early game ganks can be a little bit stronger, but Lilia obviously come mid to late game, can have these game-changing ultimates, so they're a bit of pulling against one another. Seeing the Twisted Fate and the Alistar being banned out, I'm surprised this Aphelios is going to go so far not being banned. Pantheon as well. I would be almost in shock if we don't see a Pantheon being picked up here. Obviously, he can still be flex, but one of his main roles has actually been in the jungle, and we've already got 2 junglers.
So it would have to be a support. Though, of course, Samira plus Pantheon would be a hell of a burst combo.
That's a bot lane, yeah.
And Rel as well sets up Samira so well. So taking that off the table makes some sense to me. The other thing is right now, it's, you know, of course, they're seeing Aphelios because we've got Vayne, we've got Samira, and we've decided to go for 2 slightly more, how do we put this? Dive into the enemy face and outplay kind of champions. Vayne spotting is a thing, and we'll have to see whether, you know, the likes of Gango can not do what Kobe did over in the LEC and tumble into the opponents at level 1, which I really don't recommend. LeBlanc away from Ramune will have been the last ban, and now Sengoku have got to start thinking about what they want for their 4th pick. They've got a mid laner to pick, they've got a support to pick.
Interesting stat for you here, Initialize. Both these teams during week 1 had 100% ban rate of the Aphelios. And both of them haven't banned him, both of them haven't decided to pick him. So I wonder if both these teams coming into week 1 of the LJL, they had a completely different kind of idea on what the metagame was going to be. We see NT picking up this Braum, which we've not seen from many players in the LJL so far.
Oh, here it is. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Pop Show. It is not Taylor Swift. It is, in fact, Seraphine who has been locked in. Of course, could go mid, could go bot, is still flexible, but that will be resolved
Mid.
once
Please
this
mid.
last pick comes in. Likely mid, I
Please
suppose, but
mid.
of course, Samira plus Seraphine, I suppose if you can get the on-call down, give Samira free time to run over people, and it is looking like potentially Zoe locked in to make that a Seraphine support. Very aggressive Vayne, short range, Braum, also a melee champion, potentially free reign to start throwing out all of those beat drops and high notes and causing some chaos. Now, Sengoku have given Ramune the option for the counter pick here, so I'll be curious to see what they actually go for.
Why couldn't they just pick the Seraphine? Oh, I'm so sad. I'm so sad right now. I want the Seraphine to be mid, and then there's like a few supports, especially when you know you're against a Braum. You know this Samira isn't going to be able to do a huge amount. I think something like Morgana would be pretty good in this spot because you can actually just, if you queue over the Braum, he can't jump over. It actually prevents that from happening, meaning your Samira can actually fully engage and do everything she wants to do as opposed to just getting completely blocked. I was going to say another word before I say blocked before I got there, but hey, it's an option. They didn't go that way. They've actually gone completely different direction. They've gone with the Seraphine, and then they've gone for the Zoe in the mid lane, which got counterpicked by the Victor, who, if we saw anything from Sengoku's last game, Victor is very happy to play against the Zoe.
That he is. Got to see, of course, how it works out in game. It may just end up being that it ends up as a different way, right? Because Zoe has been definitely relatively high priority. You've got a lot of ranged poke, a lot of ranged damage, pretty good burst. You've got it paired up with a Nidalee as well to really double down on hitting someone very, very hard. Question is, of course, whether this Samira can stay alive versus all the people who want to jump at her. I mean, not the most point-and-click CC, but of course she can't windwall a Hecarim charging at her, and that could definitely prove a challenge to deal with.
Yeah, it's going to be important. You mentioned obviously the Vayne with the point and click CC and everything. Obviously, Seraphine has that with the ultimate and her charm. If you land a Sleepy Trouble Bubble, then that's perfect from Zoe. And obviously, Renekton is their point and click CC. But outside of Renekton or some ultimates or some good bubbles being thrown, this Vayne could go unchecked pretty comfortably. And a good way to actually stop the Samira's ultimate is just throw her into a wall with Vayne. Like Vayne built in already has the counter pick potential. That's why we're starting to see Vayne, because she is a built-in counter to Samira.
Well, of course, the thing is, Condemn works super well into the ultimate in part because, of course, you can't use that wind wall ability while you're ultimating. Of course, you can block the Condemn if you're not in that ultimate. You do get to use your Blade Well. There you go. That's the ability name.
Now initialize. This is the best part because then it becomes a mind game and it's a mental thing, and that's what we love to see.
Of course, we'll see whether it actually works out that way.
True.
Zenit has had one game where he's really popped off, and a couple games where it's been a little bit more challenging. But here into this game versus Sengoku gaming, they've got to be feeling relatively okay. Of course, Sengoku yet to find a win. They desperately want to find one here to stop, to not go 0-4 in the first 2 weeks of play. But they've changed up their draft. They changed up their feel. It's Hecarim and Vayne as massive shifts up for them.
And this hopefully should be a bit more of a return to form. We know Ramune likes to play a lot of these control mages. I would have liked a Syndra, honestly, from him. He's far more famous for his Syndra. He's got some great actual he's got some great clips. If you actually Google Ramune Syndra, clips actually pop up. He is known for this Syndra. Why can't please play Syndra, Ramune? It also works slightly nicer with your comp because it's CC. You actually get that CC with them. You don't have to work for it like with Victor, trying to get your ultimate and everything else to work. It's far easier. The Syndra, just done. Get rid of the Vayne. No, don't have to deal with her. But I don't think we're going to have that option, as it looks like we're getting some opening credits.
We are indeed. Sengoku Gaming versus the SoftBank Hawks Gaming. We are onto the Rift, and the Hawks are setting up a little bit of something special potentially in this bot brush, but they're going to get warded out. That was smart. Looks like it was Enti who will have put that early ward in, looking to back away and get the early sweeper as well. It has become more prevalent for supports to do this as well as junglers. We'll see how it actually plays out on the Rift. Conqueror Hecarim to note here as well, not the phase rush. Feels like he wants that consistent brawling damage.
Yeah, and when you could be trying to invade this Nidalee, sometimes your trades because of her healing, especially that will be coming out, because I imagine she will go Moonstone, unless we see... God, I can't even remember the old build for Nidalee. I've already gone, oh no, you should just play...
So, I mean,
it's the Night
you
Reaver.
can go Night Harvester into Lichbane, and Night Harvester Lichbane is still pretty good, especially if you're the only AP threat, or you get super far ahead and you just feel like you need to be the damage. That said, that is a very hefty AI vote over to Sengoku Gaming, who clearly have better picks for the current meta at the minute. I'm assuming there's some negative win rates in there that are really affecting that vote right now.
I have to imagine like some like Seraphine support has a negative win rate because most people that play it end up playing it in the mid lane or just in other roles in general. I also have to imagine something like Vayne is only being picked into like counter pick potential. So in theory, you're going to win those matchups more often. But that is a huge Blitzcrank bot change. But as you can see throughout the power spikes in the first few seconds, it was switching around a bunch. So I don't know, mate. I don't know.
Yeah, I wonder whether that's basically saying, look, as this game gets later, the Hawks are definitely going to hit a point where if it gets to the super late game, that kind of post 30-minute mark, they definitely start having a significant advantage with just the way some of their champions scale. Samira late game with enough items, Zoe late game when she can just 100-0 somebody with a single combo, definitely gets pretty terrifying. And, you know, Vayne does have a range problem.
It does, and Vayne is historically known for that. There are ways around that, obviously, but a lot of it just comes down to sadly just doing what I'm Gusu used to do way back in the day, and just get really good mechanically at this champion, and just know when you can do things, and just understand your ultimate invisibility. Like that is a huge part of being able to tumble, go around, and know if the enemy knows where you're around. I have already seen some people going Dustblade onto Vayne and trying to do absolutely stupid things, but obviously it only happens 1 in a million games, right?
So I imagine something like Kraken Slayer tends to be the go-to on the champion. I could see an argument with something like Gale Force or even more dashes. Good bubble there from Dasher, but is kind of aware that Crash might be hanging around and wisely backs away. Bit of a charge into the mid lane there to help clear out the waves and gives Ramonate a bit of space to clear this out. But it's not the best push from Dasher, honestly, there. Tussle will get access to this top Scuttle Crab, though, and will be obviously looking for a dive early on because Renekton has got to shove in against this Gnar.
This is going to probably be a pretty slow burn early game from both these mid laners. These top laners are just kind of, well, they're farming. They're actually being incredibly civil.
I called out Nidalee going top, and then it's just like, no, he backs away, and they're just being very civil.
He's just getting risk scuttle. He's just going to reset.
I just used to saying, Renekton Nidalee, they'll go for the gank at level 4, surely.
Exactly, and I really do have to agree and go back to a point you said at the very first minute of this game. This favors Sengoku hugely because they are more than happy to do it. They haven't got the Renekton who needs to get a win early game. He needs to get accelerated through with this Nidalee and everything else. Hecarim and Gnar are more than happy to just be like, if you guys want us to just farm, we can just farm all game, and then we can just be monsters that come out of the jungle, especially this Hecarim, who's already on 5. Crash is already finishing up his second full clear of the jungle. He is just so far ahead at the moment from where he could have been if he was trying to find other ganks. He didn't need to, because guess what? Tussle wasn't putting any pressure on any lane. There's dragons coming up, and I wonder if we'll be seeing something around that at around the 7:30 mark.
I'll keep our eyes on that and see whether it actually plays out that way, of course. Zoe picks up the redemption. I believe that's actually been removed from her active pool of pickups in recent matches. So no longer is that bit of glorious RNG available to Zoe players. Instead, what it means is it's an early shove, and it'll be Dussel and Dasher looking to come up and fight around this top wave. Paz is very close to Mega Gnar, though, so this could get very scary very quickly, but it'll still be a 3v2, and there's no teleport to come back, and Yeah,
Crash is
the
just
spear
showing
lands,
himself.
but they just can't do it.
Yeah, Crash is just showing himself not because they want to fight, as a deterrent. That's why he just walked up behind Paz and was just like, "I'm just here. I'm just here. We're not looking to do anything." Which, look at how much time this is just wasted for Dasher. Dasher pushed up his wave really aggressively, tried to do something, and then just got told, "Hey, you've missed probably like 2 to 3 CS by just walking off." And that's another experience thing. And this is why Ramune is already 6, and Dasher is only just ticking over to 6. But Ramune is now able to recall. Oh no, he was just placing a deep wall vision and now is able to keep applying pressure because he's already set up his way for how he wants it. Whereas Dash is kind of at the mercy of what Ramune wants him to do.
Sure, and I think there's also something about, for all that we say Renekton and Nidalee is a great combo, it's also very obvious what your opposing team is going to do. Namely, Nidalee will come top and attempt a tower dive in the early levels of the game. Shock horror, what a surprise. I've never seen this before in the history of Pro League of Legends, and Crash, as a pro player, is obviously very aware of this as well, right? He just turns up and shadows the lane, and yes, you could go in 3v2, but there's Mega Gnar on the way, there's Hecarim there as well, and it just gets increasingly difficult to pull off.
Just look at where both these junglers have done it. They've planned their jungle pathing perfectly. It's coming up to that 7:30-minute mark that I was mentioning earlier, and they're just starting to do their third clear now. Crash has already done Gromp, and now it's time to set up for this blue buff to give over to Ramune. Wouldn't be surprised if it goes Wolves, and then they try and set up to do something with this bot lane, just to try and enable Gango and Enti to unlock them from the map and then allow them to come around and help for the dragon. It looks like, though, actually Crash is going to go topside and just get more camps because the Hawks aren't actually pressuring them. Again, this is something that has been from basically minute one. If Sengoku don't have pressure placed upon them, they're more than happy to play this game against the Hawks till they get outscaled.
Yeah, definitely a possibility, and of course, it's relatively even in this early game. Hell, it's dead even as far as the gold. Sengoku Gaming just ticking up to 11.9 versus that 11.8, so 100 to 200 gold in it. That's not exactly what you call a great holistic lead here, Lexi.
No, it's not, but this is perfect for how well. So this amplifies the Gnar because Gnar just can't do much early game, especially versus Renekton. But mid to late game, he can just become mega. He can jump into the middle and hopefully knock away the Renekton, or at least zone the Renekton. This Rift Herald has come up, and this is what was actually the big fight that's going to be around this top side of the map. We've already seen the bot lane of the Hawks have rotated around. Corporal and Zenit are here. And now we're going to see how many members are going to do. They aren't committing Apperman to this fight, so I wouldn't be too surprised if the Hawks give this over.
Yeah, got to be aware as well, Corporal does not have level 6 right now, so there is no Encore available. Herald fight comes in, Apperman pops Dominus looking for the flank, and we're going to see Paz go in first, so gets a Mega Gnar onto Zenit and forces the early cleanse. Bladewell down as well, Flash in for the Cull the Meek. Big damage from the Ruthless Predator as well, doing as much damage as he can at the back end. Tussle and Crash fighting, looking for the kill. Hop in, but Hecarim gets it! No way! No way! That looked like it was an easy execute when Tussle is going to be kicking himself thinking he had that. The heal from Aura of Dread and Conqueror just too much.
I think also Tussle missed a face, like a blank facing forward Q. I think there was a spear that just went slightly wide. That might... I will need to see the replay, obviously, to verify that perfectly, but it looks like there was something that went hugely wrong. Let's talk about this. So they're committing the TP, even though they have said Apperman, you go bot lane. They already lose the Rift Herald, so half of this fight, and now they're just fighting over to try and get something out of this. The Hawks are desperate, and they're not coming at this perfectly. Look, they've got 2 over in the top, 2 in the mid, and then they've got Apperman in the middle. However, Apperman's able to correct so much. Let's watch this with Crash and Tussle. Oh, he misses the claw. Q combo misses, and yeah, actually no, it is just the Conqueror stack with a Q, and he just healed far too much.
W healing and Conqueror, just too much. That
Yeah.
was unreal. It looked like an easy execute. Genuinely did. Tussle got to be so frustrated. I wonder whether the mark ran out just as he went for the pounce, because it didn't look like it went the full distance you normally expect from the pounce, or the marked target empowered pounce.
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely part of it, right? He missed that, which was a huge chunk and potentially could have been the difference between life and death there. I mean, this went everything Sengoku could have hoped for. They got a kill, they wasted a bunch of time, they got a summoner, they got 2 summoners out of Apperman, they got a cleanse out of Zenit. They're like, okay, we we traded effectively. We trade a few of our summoners for their summoners, but at the same time, we got the Rift Herald, we got the kill, and now we're gonna get the first dragon as well. Sengoku are taking a decisive lead, even if in the gold department they're not in the lead. Remember, they've got that Rift Herald. They're just sitting turret plating, waiting for them.
Okay, well, we'll keep our eyes out. That is still a slight
Trinity
gold lead.
Force
Interesting to
coming
the
in.
Hawks, right? Yeah. But here comes the dive top once again. But Paz at level 9 and nearly at Meganar is definitely scarier. And again, as they turn up here in this top side, as the wave is being pushed in, Paz is at Meganar, and it makes this dive so much harder. And look where Crash is, just shadowing down the lane. With the devastating charge, and of course the onslaught of shadows is a very quick horse to get around the map. So don't manage to pull anything up despite a second roam up top.
Yeah, no, there's nothing that the bot lane, well, the jungle mid duo of Dasher and Tussle could have actually done there. It's like, what, you can't dive Paz when he's mega. He pushed pretty far up. Ooh, huge trade going on to Dasher. That's uncharacteristic.
Crash is coming behind him. There's no flash on Dasher and nothing in inventory. Dasher's in trouble here. Here comes the chilling smite, and the death laser will ensure that Zoe falls down to Victor. Nice gank from Crash coming in behind. And there's a Herald in their inventory as well. Mid lane tower is about to go down in seconds flat.
That is far bigger than I think Dasher and anybody else on the side of the Hawks could have expected. If a gang happens from Crash, how much are we going to lose? It's probably just going to be the plating of like a plate or two, and maybe a kill, not double charge, full turret from max health and everything else. This is just so backbreaking because of the sheer amount of golden experience that has just gone over to Sengoku and nullified a lot of what the Hawks had going for them in this mid game. This is just going perpetually further and further into Sengoku's side, and now they need to try and unlock the members of the bot lane for Sengoku. They can do this or unlock this Gnar a little bit. It's going to be everything Sengoku.
Yeah, and that was a first Trinity Force gank. It gets the work done real easy for Crash. He gets to pick up boot 2 as well, alongside a control ward. So this Hecarim is off to the races, all puns intended. And Sengoku Gaming have a gold lead now. Hell, it's a 2,000 gold lead, and that's great news for them, considering they were sort of falling behind a little bit in some of these lanes. Like this Renekton on the top side was getting a bit scary. Bot lane as well, Samira, bit of an advantage over this Vayne just in lane, and those 2 kills, that first tower, definitely gives them what they were looking for.
Yeah, that was more than anything. Also, we get to see that Crash is able to get those moat treads. Whoa, Paz wants to go at Apperman, but he has got Dominus, so there's no sense in going for it too much, Paz. He's going to be able to tank it far more than you want him to.
And that's the thing, like with Meganar, is basically that ultimate ability is available every time you use it, and Crash is just around in this jungle, but I think Corporal and Zenit are wise to back away, but it does give Sengoku Gaming free time to start having a look at ganking this bot lane. But at the top side, Tussle gets onto Paz, jumping forwards. The red buff flow is pretty huge, but Hyperprox me and Appermen not being in range means there's no combo with the Renekton stun, no Ruthless Predator to hold the Gnar in place, and that's about it. It's just Paz hopping away with a bit of a lower health bar. No kill, and Gango gets some more time on the bot side, and that's a lot of plates.
Yep, that's a huge amount of plates. 1k in turret plating over to the side of Sengoku. Hawks did get 160. It says it's got 1. I don't know why it's saying plus 0, but
hey, wasn't in range. It happened when he wasn't in range to get the gold. So that they've
was
got
he not in range?
He wasn't in range to get the plate, so they don't even get that. So it's
dear.
A whole K of gold that's basically straight from turret plates that the Hawks just don't get to match. They are thinking you're going over the second herald, though.
Yeah, they are thinking about this getting their second herald, but they're fighting over something that is kind of a bit of a delayed fight. Like, is this really what you want, or would you prefer to maybe try and set up vision around your bot side, try and clear a lot of that vision, and then set up for this dragon that's coming up? It's an ocean dragon, so it's definitely something you're going to have to put in. And the side of the Sengoku, they're like, yeah, you guys can take this Rift Herald. You're not going to get extra gold from it. You're going to get a turret at some point. We've already got first turret. Let's not concern ourselves with that fight. Let's get prepared for the ocean fight, which is a fight we actually want to take. And you can already see when they were coming down to the spot side to try and see if they could gank Zenit and Corporal, they actually were also doing a 2-prong attack. They were also setting up for this dragon fight for when it does happen in 15 seconds. Sengoku, I imagine, will be set up for this. However, actually, no, they're just going to the opposite side of the map and trying to find Zenit. What? Go bot side, team.
their thinking there is if we send bot lane top to match Zenit, we can have Nara and the likes try and play around the Drake a little later, and it just stops their towers going down on their end, so it stops Hawks getting anything back. And these guys don't have teleport, so it would basically end up being a 3v3 potentially between the solo laners and junglers around the dragon if that's what happened. And at the minute with where this
Crash is just going for it anyway on his
he's-
own. He's going to solo it.
Yeah, I think he will, because the bot lanes went top, and that means it's a lot harder to find easy access to this Drake. And yeah, it'll just be a solo, no contest from the Hawks. It'll be second Drake for Sengoku Gaming, and they don't even get the free push on top tower.
Honestly think this is something we don't see enough in competitive play. I don't know about you, Initialize, but we don't see a huge amount of pressure, especially around Dragon, which is an objective that can be taken by many champions solo and pretty quick. We don't see that happen very often. I know obviously part of it is because of this team play, but we saw Hansama over in the LEC doing a solo Drake. We just saw Crash doing a solo Drake. I think the element of when it's correct to do a solo Drake has been lost. And it's nice to see Crash actually going, hey, I can just do this. You guys can do this. And you identified perfectly. Make our bot lane go top, force the mirror, prevent them from getting further into this game or even coming back into this game, and let's just push our advantage further. And it's working perfectly for Sengoku.
Yeah, I think part of it is we might be seeing a bit more pressure on this top side. The Herald will be summoned, and see whether Gango and NT can hold this Herald off for long enough. They're going to try and stun it in place. They will do a lot of work. It'll get a charge down, and there goes the turret. And nice attempt by Sengoku to try and prevent that going down. It's just not quite enough. Either way, I kind of agree. I think part of it as well is that the side lanes have kind of become a bit of a preoccupation purely because Heralds and Dragons are so important. We've seen some quite mercurial matchups in both top and bot, like Camille's and Jax's coming up at the top side, Samira's Vaynes, even like the really kill combos with things like Leona's and stuff coming out as Dasher takes a massive amount of damage from the Chaos Storm coming out of Ramune. I think a rough time in this lane, and I think part of that does mean that because there's so much pressure, and then people obviously then look toward, you kind of get a little bit nervous about whether you can actually go for a Drake solo, because you just don't know whether it's warded out sometimes. And if you don't know, it's like, do I want to be here by myself? Am I in danger of getting teleported and collapsed on by 4 people? Especially in pro play where that's just so much more consistent to happen. I can see why that might be a bit fearsome. But, Crash does manage to get away with it. And of course, he's a Hecarim, and he's quite quick to get away from things if he has to, especially with the Onslaught of Shadows. So, felt pretty safe to do it. Gets that second Drake, and it's what looks like an Infernal Rift as well. So, they've got the 2 Drakes fairly early, and they can probably look towards an Infernal Soul, probably close towards that 28-ish minute mark, something like that, depending on when they pick up the Dragons. And all things coming up pretty Sengoku favor right now. They're up 3,500 gold. They've got the outer turrets down. They've got a Vayne scaling, a Victor who's doing very well in this lane. It's a great sort of resurgent game from Ramune. He's had a bit of a rough time of it in the last few games. He's up that 30-odd CS mark and looking pretty good in this game. Crash as well, Paz as well. This is looking pretty good for Sengoku in a way that it hasn't in like 3 games straight.
Sengoku finally seemed to have found a bit of their grounding, a bit of some comfort here. Maybe it's a champion thing. Maybe it's just a setup. Maybe it's just something completely mercurial that we just don't know. However, they're feeling confident, and they're going to be wanting to fight around Dragon for the next 2 objectives. Now, this does work somewhat.
Beat drops down, Encore's in as well, but that's a good block from NT to keep people safe. Crash is pretty low, but Gango gets a lot of damage back onto Zenit, and now Corporal's in a lot of trouble. Paz hopping forwards, gets the slow, and the Hyperproc is there. Gango gets that kill, and the collapse is collapsed on in turn. Now the Hawks need to try and disengage. Shield comes up, wrapped in a nice pretty bow, and end of that. It's about a minute and a half till Drake. Hawks tried to find what they thought was an opportunistic pick and instead get picked themselves.
Yeah, really uncharacteristic mistake there from Corporal, getting completely caught out. Tussle is trying to do some fishing, try and make up for it, but Corporal will be up in time for this dragon fight. He got separated from the rest of his team because of how far down he was, and the rest of his team were able to get out of that. Let's come into this replay and really identify this. Dasher and Tussle look like they want to try and force control over this. I don't think we're actually in a replay. Oh no, we're not anymore. Okay, that was we are now. Okay, let's go through this. So we're seeing the hacker, we're seeing Renekton TPing in. The problem is his location isn't anywhere, and Corporal was trying to come back with his team, but got completely collapsed upon. And Apperman teleported onto a ward that wasn't quite deep enough. He could have gone to the bot side, but I think he would have had to go to a wave because they didn't quite have vision. They've only just put
Sure.
that vision back out. So, yeah, maybe he should have just given up on that fight, tried to push another, stay in a lane, and then just hold his teleportation for when this dragon is coming up in the next minute. Well, 10 seconds now.
Yeah, it's going to be up very quickly, and that leaves us with another fight to be had. A lot of summoners available, a lot of ultimates available. Of course, Corporal critically no flash and does not have Encore quite yet. That's a big team fight tool that is down, but Ramne might be about to face check out. Remember, that is a wise Farsight alteration to prevent himself walking into danger there.
Senate doesn't have cleanse coming in as this as well.
Could be a problem, especially when there's a lot of people who would love to get onto that smear and cause some chaos.
Oh, yeah.
Those death rays coming out, definitely pretty terrifying from Ramane at this point as well. Concussive blows beginning to get stacked on top of everything else. And this dragon started off and down to half HP. And Tussle just can't get anywhere close. That will be Infernal Soul, and Sengoku Gaming might be looking for the fight. There's the onslaught of shadows. And down goes Corporal, picked off far too easily at the end of that one. No way out. It's a double for Vayne of all carries. Flashing in for more. The slows are there. The silver bullet's not quite enough. There it is coming through. The stopwatch now popped, and Sengoku Gaming will surround and bring down the kitty cat. Brought down, that's 3 kills, and the Infernal Drake, and it's 21 minutes, nearly 22, and that means Baron time, Lexi. What a fight for Sengoku Gaming.
Everything went perfect. The Hawks didn't engage on them when they could have had an advantage, and while half of the team was focused on the Dragon, Gango and Crash were doing a lot of that, and then the moment they popped off, who were the 2 carries that were doing a lot of the damage? It was Gango and Crash. The Hawks had an opportunity, they didn't go for it, and then they hung around for far too long. Corporal got completely caught out in the Hecarim ultimate, and then as we come into this replay, let's identify it. Look at this. Gango and Crash are setting up for this. Paz is just playing border duty as well as NT. There's no way for the side of the Hawks to come in. They now either need to disengage or get completely into it. Ramane was also doing great work with this Victor, but watch Crash here. Bang! Corporal's already gone, and then this Condemn here. Huge. It basically prevents anything Apamem could have done this fight, and they've already lost. In the blink of an eye, the Hawks went from maybe if we can find a good angle we can win this into we've just completely lost this fight, and it might be the signal of the end of this game, because if they get Baron, which obviously coming in out of this replay they did, and they've reset now and they're pushing on, in the next few minutes they're going to be looking for that Dragon Soul, because they probably can't end through this Baron for obvious reasons. It's only 20 minutes in, 23 minutes in. They're nowhere near as far as ahead as they need to be. However, they have got a 7k gold lead, a few more K, and they could just be knocking on the Hawks' door, and it won't be something that they'll want to answer.
I don't think they will. Of course, we have to see whether they can close it out, but that is a significant gold lead. That's Infernal Soul point, that's Baron. There's not a lot here that the Hawks get to say about this right now, unless they find the mother of all picks, unless they find a Samira at 3, nearly 4 items to get running rampant at this fight, but this Hecarim, 2 items. It's Gnar as well looking pretty good, and the rest of the carries also at a very strong point. It's not even like they scale badly either, so Hawks need to find something soon or hold on for their dear life and try to scale out of this, but I'm not sure how easy that's actually going to be.
And now we're almost coming into it. Can they have a deathless game? It can't be a perfect game anymore, because that top turret that went off very long ago, and it made total sense why that gone. It made no sense for Sengoku to fight over there. There definitely could have been a death at that point if they fought. So we're not gonna think about that. We're gonna think, can they do a deathless game? And as it's currently standing, I think Sengoku could actually do it, because my God, Initialize, they're 9k ahead now.
Whew. They are very, very far ahead. They've got all the outer turrets. It's just the base towers remaining, and they'll go for a quick reset. And I think that might be Baron over. Don't have a timer up on screen, so can't confirm.
Yeah, I think it's over.
Sure.
I think you're right.
But that is very contented push. They get all the outer towers. They get themselves up to that 9k mark, as you mentioned, and very little at this point the Hawks can say about this game state. They've got to hold on and hope for the best, but it's looking increasingly dire.
Yeah, and like when you look at this from a perspective, how can the Hawks come back into this? It's like, well, they have to find a pick around this dragon fight. The problem is now for the side of the Hawks, and I know I've said this a few times now, but Vayne has now got 3 items. like Gango is just gonna do far too much damage for anyone on the team to deal with. Like unless Apperman can get on top of them with Corporal getting an ultimate coming through, yeah, I'm saying there's a chance. I absolutely will I say there's a chance. And I mean, let's be real. The side of the Hawks are trying everything. It's 40 seconds away, and we finally got the Night Harvester in for Tussle on this
Sweet.
Nidalee. But geez, 98. I don't think I've ever seen it so much from Blitzcrank. But
We had 94% in the last game. I believe 98% is
that's right.
all but over. And even here on the desk, look, we'd love to give you some ways back in for the Hawks, but it's looking very difficult.
Wait,
Maybe
wait,
Zenit
wait.
can pop off. Maybe you find a great encore, but that's about it.
Initialize, does that mean we can actually just kind of start doing what the LCK occasionally does, and they go, okay, game's over, now we can start memeing and having fun with this?
Well, maybe we can. Like we've got Enti maybe getting picked briefly there, but just not enough damage. They're gonna teleport into the mid lane.
What? Where are we
Apperman?
going with this?
I mean, it means he's
Apperman?
around for the
Paz is
Infernal
still
Soul.
pushing.
Ramanage is going to shove it in this bot lane. We're going to see Paz in the top side. They want this Infernal Drake because they don't want to give up Infernal Soul, but Sengoku can go, fine, we'll give up one Infernal Drake. We'll take both inhibitors in your top and bot lane and feel really happy about it.
I saw you did an Avengers meme to when Tempora replied to your inevitable, and then you gave him the thing. I'm starting to feel like some Avengers stuff coming through with this. When Ramane going, I am inevitable. I will always make playoffs, and like trying to click and they go when I try, like clicking now, and it's like, yeah, you can have the dragon. We can't have a flawless game anymore, so let's just push and get an inhibitor and bot turret, and now we're set up, and we can get this Baron in a minute, and it's just over, Hawks. I'm sorry.
It's not looking good. He just pulled out the chaos and Apperman's like, oh, I've got to run away from a Victor. This is really sad. And this Victor is on 3 items. He's got the Morellonomicon to mean that Apperman's healing means nothing. The Gore Drinker, obviously not a bad thing to have, and that's nice and all, but when you're going into a lot of
the
anti-tank
level
right
disparity.
Now. Yeah, it's a big level disparity. I mean, that's a level 16 ultimate, that level 3 ultimate coming out from Ramane the Chaos Storm doing so much work at this point, even into something.
Oh yeah, that's
like
a big reason why it's going to just delete, yeah.
Yeah, of course, Crash does get hit by the bubble there, but he's also fairly tanky, and he just steps him forward. And it hits a door instead. Dasher will throw an exhaust out, but again, this Zoe is like at an item and a half. Like there's like a bargain bucket in the inventory on top of a Ludens. Like, yes, there's a Blighting Jewel, yes, there's an Oblivion Orb, yes, there's a Stopwatch, but none of those are completed items. That's not a Void Staff, that's not a Morellonomicon, that's not a Zhonya's, and that's a rough place to be in nearly 30 minutes into the game.
Yeah, and Apperman just feels like the most nullified.
Final hour comes out as well. It forces the teleport and the flash.
Mate.
That's not fair. He's going to run away. Dash is not going to hit the bubble. It's a bit sad. Enti nearly hopped in front of it, though, which would have been a bit unfortunate. But either way, Paz gets to shove in this bot side, and Hawks panic pull a teleport to try and save their top laner, and probably rightly so, but it means that the bot lane inhibitor goes not quite down because Paz has to pull away, but it leaves Sengoku free to take a second Baron of the game. They've already broken the base. They've already got an inhibitor. And you see, that's the last power play. They got about 3,000, well, 3,500 gold. And this next one is probably going to come with that 50 gold you get from the Nexus, I feel.
Oh, I have to agree with you, Initialize. This game is just a slow burner. It might not be the now 1.2 gold. Okay, whatever. The Baron play.
I think new one. I'm assuming.
Maybe? No, it's disappeared. Who knows? It doesn't matter. We're a bootleg broadcast, and we can just speculate on what we see and then go,
we don't have any access
to
to the Japanese production.
We don't get we don't get an unlisted feed on YouTube, sadly.
Sigh.
One day, one day, who knows? But in this game we're talking about here, Initialize, what's something spicy we could see? How do you want this game to end? I want Crash to get a 5-man ultimate.
Ooh,
I want to get a Wombo combo ult.
Yeah,
I want to get the
Gnar
ultimate.
I'm there with you. Or I would like Gango popping off on the Vayne. I think it's good to see him
that'd be cool.
Back to looking pretty damn good. He had a really good lane in the last game. At least we're getting to see him carry a bit harder this time. And Ramane as well. Looking so much better on the Victor. So nice to see.
Look at Paz. He's just never with his team now because they don't need him.
They don't need him. It's the right call, right? They can't answer right now. And no one wants to 1v1 the Vayne either. That's another inhibitor down. The inhibitor turret in mid falls. This will be the last remaining inhibitor sure to fall. And suddenly it's minions pouring into the base, and the Hawks with one last gasp to try and save this game. But I think it's all over except for the weeping. Maybe, just maybe, Zenit or Corporal can find a big pick. Maybe, just maybe, Dash can find something. But at the minute, the health bars are so down low, and the onslaught is shadows onto the fountain. It ain't 5 men, but that'll do. 2 are dead already. The Nexus exposed, and Sengoku Gaming will beat the Hawks in just over 30 minutes.
Performance. You know what? That wasn't quick like our previous game, but that was clean from Sengoku Gaming. That was controlled, and a lot of different decisions were made around the whole map where they just understood this is a small advantage here. This is another small one, taking very small advantage and snowballing it. We saw them take a 1k lead all the way and propel it across a 30-minute game. Well, 25 minutes of what we actually needed to see into just a tremendous lead. And honestly, congratulations to Sengoku picking up their first win there.
They did a great job. But to break this game down, we do need a moment or two to collect our thoughts to give you something worth talking about in the analyst desk. So we'll be right back in just a minute or two. Well, we're back, Lexi. What do you know?
We are indeed, and we just saw the Hawks get pulled apart by the strings that Sengoku were pulling, and honestly, initialized, this was a game where we thought Sengoku had the opportunity to do this across multiple games, and we thought they could do this versus almost anybody. It's good to know they can do this, and let's be real, part of the problem here, why it didn't work out for the Hawks was, well, their drafting phase, isn't it? This Renekton and Nidalee, what happened? Or rather, what didn't happen?
Well, we saw multiple attempts top, Dasher pushing out and looking to three-man topside, and they never pulled the trigger. Partly because the waves weren't in the right position, partly because Paz had Mega Gnar possibly fortuitously every time the wave crashed and they were there. And also, serious credit for Crash, who was there to shadow the gank every time. And that kind of meant that never worked out. And if you're playing Nidalee Renekton and don't really get the kills, yeah, Renekton got a 10 or 20 CS lead, but that's not enough, frankly.
No, and it never really amounted to much more than a little bit of a brief lead in the CS department, and kind of maybe when Paz did start getting a few of those plating or tower plating, it didn't go fully in his way because, well, thankfully Renekton had at least a bit of gold on their side, but it didn't matter for very long. And the most important part about that is, well, eventually Crash was able to get that Rift Herald. They were able to get a bit of gold into their pockets, but the really, really big play happened around, if I remember rightly, the 10-minute mark, when they were able to find a pick on Dasher into the bot lane, in the mid lane for that gank, and then getting full 5 turret plating. That it just snowballed the game, right?
It really did. So Ramene's in mid, he's on the Zoe, and he gets chunked a bit by
Ramene's on the
Victor. So Ramene's on the Victor. So Ramene's on Victor. Sorry, I meant Dasher,
I know, Dasher
is on the Zoe. Thank you. Other way around. I apologize. And he gets chunked out. He's got no flash from the last set of plays that had happened. And what it means is that literally Trinity Force is bought by Crash. He comes out onto the map. He gets his Herald inventory. He walks round the back. Chaos Storm and Death Ray come out. And it is an easy, devastating charge into kill onto the Zoe. He falls. They then get all 5 turret plates in this mid lane turret that goes down as well. And it suddenly balloons up from a mid lane gold lead to 2,000 gold in a matter of moments. And the mid lane pressure at that point is huge. The top lane hasn't gone the way they wanted to. The Nidalee died for first blood after a really unfortunate death in the duel between the Hecarim and the Zoe and the Nidalee around that Herald fight as well. And at that point, it's like, well, what's going on? And Hawks at that point just feel like they don't have a way back into the game in some ways, because every fight after that they've lost pressure, and some of the key members were just a long way behind.
Yeah, they were able to successfully get, obviously, that second Rift Herald, and they did use that to push in on that top turret, which did prevent, obviously, the side of the side of Sengoku having a flawless game. But hey, Deathless is still pretty good. Obviously, they were able to get a dragon and then another dragon, but then it wasn't much. They got that Cloud Drake before that mid lane gank, and then they got the I want to say it was an Ocean Drake, but when this Earth Drake came up, that's when the well, no, it was Infernal. My apologies. When Infernal Drake came up, they were able to secure it, but then they got so much more than they thought they would get, didn't they?
They really did. There's not. The problem is they get this Drake, and then the fight afterwards is absolutely brutal. They lose 3 members. Vayne pops off, runs wild, gets the jungler of all people as well. And so they've got a 3-man advantage. They've got the kill onto the jungler, and they just rotate over to the Baron as well. So they get Infernal Soul Point, 3 kills, and Baron, and then get to shove in. And at this point, Paz on the Gnar in one side lane is a nightmare. Ramane on the other with the Victor is also very strong and had a fantastic game, actually, which was a really nice thing to see, especially after he's been struggling a little bit to find a lot of power in these fights. So they then start the 1-3-1, and the game just kind of cracks wide open from there. And Hawks never really had a way back after they end up in a 9k gold deficit from that Baron power push.
Exactly, and by that Baron push, they were able to rotate around, and Sengoku owned this map. Remember, we saw them in a desperation move. They were using the objectives and just going, hey, we can just go around here, go around there. We can just pull you around the map. Beautifully played by Sengoku, and honestly, once that was all done, that play was over. The game was everything for Sengoku. By the 25-minute mark, when we saw Blitzcrank bot come up and go 98%, they win. It's like, okay, this game is just going through the motions now.
Yeah.
However, a game that has yet to go through the motions is our game that will be after this break, Initialize, and that's going to be Detonation Focus Me playing against Crest Gaming Act in our Detonation Focus Me double bill to end out our stream.
So
I'm
excited.
excited. Are you?
I
Yes.
very much am. This DFM squad has had some flaws, don't get me wrong, and we'll talk about it, I'm sure, after this break, but
Oh, yeah.
they've also looked very dangerous with some insane mechanics in CGA. Also, bit of a surprising amount of power, especially from that mid-jungle 2v2, so I'm really looking forward to it.
Well, you're looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure our viewers are. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with Detonation Focus Me versus Crest Gaming Act right after this break.